Well, welcome back to Lead Stronger Longer. This is the podcast for the leader who is done performing well at a personal cost. I'm your host, Stefana Ottinger, and I am a keynote speaker. I'm the creator of Yogi Lachi, and I'm also the author of Stay S.A.N.E, latest book. And today's guest found my book, bought it. He reviewed it on Amazon, 5 stars. Thank you.
Welcome.
And then he wrote a parable about it, which I thought was amazing. He was connecting my Stay Sane method with Gnostic philosophy. He connected it with Alan Watts and the ancient practice of asking, who is aware? So that is definitely not a typical reader's response. For me, that was a thinker responding, and it led me down a whole new rabbit hole. And I am excited to share this conversation with you folks. Dennis is the writer at Red Pill of Truth on Substack. His lens is through what he calls Sophia Cristos. This is the marriage of wisdom and the sacred. So what he saw in my book, Stay Sane, surprised even me. He took what I was writing with regards to the SANE being an acronym, signal, anchor, neutralize, and then execute, that map. And he directly connected it to an ancient centering practice that mystics and philosophers have been quietly teaching for centuries. Once I understood that and I read his post on it, I couldn't unsee what he had shared. And especially when he brought in the piece with Alan Watts. And Alan Watts is somebody that I have really admired and studied work on. So it was not lost on me, not only his review, but, and I shouldn't say his because you're right here with me. I'll just say you. Thank you for your review. It still touches me when I read that. It was incredibly meaningful. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to read my book and share your insight about it. There's multiple questions that I have, but what I want to do first, Dennis, welcome to Lead Stronger Longer. And I want to start with the parable you wrote about it. So if you could just tell our listeners how and what you saw with regards to in my book, what made you want to do that? Because most people do not respond to certainly a business book or any book by writing philosophy. So share with us, would you?
Well, I've just been studying for some time now the ancient Gnostics. A lot of people haven't heard of them, right? I read a book by John Lamb Lash, Not in His Image. Talks about the early Gnostics. They were well known and well established in the early century, first century, second, third of the early Christian era. They were eventually outlawed and stamped down and hunted down and killed because of the things they were teaching, your independent connection with the divine, the real Heavenly Father, they called the monad, the source of all consciousness. And you independently connect with that source. You don't need an institution. You don't need a hierarchy. And this is not something Rome wanted. And Constantine in 325 made Christianity the official religion. And in time, they went and hunted them all down, destroyed their writings. But they were rediscovered. Some monks, buried them. They were discovered in 1945, Nag Hammadi, the Gnostic texts. Prior to that, all humans had were their enemies. The early church, the Orthodox Church that was forming, the Alexandria of Clement and various other people wrote various things against the Gnostics. That's how we know that they existed. And they were something about, I think it was Irenaeus wrote about on heresies, and they attacked the Gnostics because they can make you independent, and that's dangerous. You can't be free and independent. Like when an institution attacks that, So these were rediscovered. There was some sort of edict, and I think it was 367, the Bishop of Rome. These are heresy. You have to hunt these down. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John only. And they eventually got killed. And most people don't know about them. But they're rediscovered. And John Lamb Lash, his book, he goes into this kind of history. If you want to read more about it, it's pretty dark and fascinating. And so they had a basic mythos of Sophia, the goddess from the Pleroma, which was like the Gnostic version of heaven, if you will. There's some analogies, right? And she was so passionately in love with the creation she was trying to bring forth. She left the Pleroma, became the earth, came into what they call the kinema. This is our physical realm of energy, mass, energy, actually morphed into the earth. This is the myth. I mean, there's so many myths and things to try and understand, but I understand these things these days in a sort of a parable, metaphor way. That's, to me, connecting with awareness, which your book helped to sort of help me, bridge that gap. That it's the awareness that's beyond ideas and words and concepts. What's there when you take that all away? Ideas, words, concepts. Can you think without thinking? That's kind of a weird thing. It takes time. It takes, contemplation. What is there if you take away your thoughts? We think that's what we are. That's the AI. I call that the AI portion of our brain, the left side of the brain, the male aspect of logic. And I've interacted with AIs. I don't know if you have. They're fascinating little machines. They don't have emotion. They claim not to. I believe them. But emotion, that's the Sophia. That's the wisdom. That's the feminine divine, intuition, care aspect. Well, Mark Passio talks about too. I've learned some of that from his stuff too in my other website, What on Earth is Happening. WTF. What the fuck is happening on Earth? So, But I talk more about how it relates to your book. But yeah, go ahead, step in.
Well, this concept, all of these teachings that I have delved in after kind of extricating myself from a very dogmatic belief. And it doesn't matter whether you label it a specific religion or a government belief, or it is a very fixed idea of whatever the belief is that locks you out of connecting with truth. And the more I walk this walk, the more I discover the power of the simplicity of truth and not in different forms, but just in the essence of what truth is. It transcends language and concept. It transcends everything.
Right.
And it's something that it depends on where someone is, but I look at it, especially because where I'm coming from is mentoring leaders from a different perspective, because there's, especially women leaders, there's such a false paradigm of what we have to do, where I talk about with regards, I'm sure men do this as well, but I can only speak for women, where we give everything until we have nothing, because of having to do both the work that's our feminine work to do, and then we have bought into the masculine part. Now that's a whole other topic, because there's so many pieces to this principle of the feminine masculine, right? It's within us, but then there's this very hard driven energy that is current now, probably for the last few centuries of pushing through it. Family is, just destroy the family. There is no feminine energy of loving and care in the family. And to me, I think that part of my work in this time and in this age is that it is about restoring that feminine aspect and balance of what that means. And for me, a leader is really a guide, someone who is mentoring and being in a place and immerses into something with a vision. And maybe there is chaos, but they come out of that chaos and they are able to then tell a story, write a book, guide someone. They're the ones that are guiding, and they do get scratched up and they do get damaged sometimes. And I have seen this energy of the Sophia Cristos differently now, because at first when we name something, it becomes almost literal. It takes on a persona. Yeah. And I think that that's a big mistake. For sure, for myself. I wish I could go back and tell my younger self this, to stop making things be personas, like the God energy. We're making them be personages, and then they get, as a result of that, they get fixed and stopped and stuck in where you can't actually transmute the power that's coming naturally, that we all have, if we can recognize that connection to Sophia Cristos, to Christos, that power of Christ. And so that's something that's really important to me. But when you brought up the Alan Watts piece, where Alan was, it's like, we can talk about this and we can know this, but then it's hard to do sometimes, right? And I remember, because it was in this room where I was standing at the stove and I was so small in my energy field, and I could hear my son saying, "Mom, you're choosing this." And there was a delay, but it was, and that moment I was observing what was happening, and that shifted. And I thought, when you mentioned Alan and what he had gone through, that was interesting to me. I don't know his experience or what you had brought in, but that was really interesting to me. And I wanted you to kind of pull all that together and share more insights on that.
Yeah, I don't know too much about Watts, other than he was sort of like the Eastern way of thinking, and he was Western, so he's able to like bring it to the Western world in a way that kind of made sense. And of course, he had his issues and problems. He could talk wonderfully, say such wonderful things, and yet he admitted he had problems, relationship problems. He drank too much, alcoholic, it killed him. I think he had health problems from that, maybe died from that even. Well, I'm sure it exacerbated it for sure. But that's the thing. You can get into that mode. I feel that way. Not all the time, but I get into that mode where I really feel connected with the Sophia Cristos, with the goddess, with intuition, Carrie. You're getting that intuition hit. And it just seems that all the time. Watts couldn't do it either. No human can. And that's the struggle. Sophia, that's the divine feminine, what they call the right side of the brain, right? Cristos, brain aspect. And merge them, right? That's what the Gnostics call the syzygy, the internal marriage.
Yeah. So this to me is the key. This is the journey to know and to do. If I would look at it, a lot of Mark Passio's work is aligning. And when he talks about the shadow work of aligning what the care, the heart, I guess that would be the Sophia Cristos.
Yeah, right side, yeah, brain.
With the will is the action, the left side, isn't it? Or is the thought coming first? So he talks about the trifecta. There's a trifecta as opposed to just these two pieces, right? How does that come about? How do we look at it that way?
Trifecta, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there, it's the care, it's the thought, the origination, which I had this idea that thought is the father, and that the care, the energy, the emotion, the desire, the passion is the spark, and put those together, and that creates the life, which is the third result, or the will. And so that to me is what I had looked at as perhaps that is the action, right? So for me, if I look at it with regards to the signal, I would hear the signal, but I was so overwhelmed with the emotional piece. And I think so many people on this planet do not understand their own emotions, are inverted with the Sophia Cristos.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they definitely want to train us to be very left-brained and logical and deny the intuition and the aspects. And this doesn't feel right. This is not right.
It's not possible to deny it. Would you agree? There's no possible way to deny it. What happens, I think, is that we just become confused. We get what we've got now, but there's no way to deny it. It's there. To me, that's part of the signal. That's the key signal. And part of what neutralizing is to neutralize that chaos that is created because we are so disconnected from our depth of emotions, and there's no way until you actually anchor in the truth of that connection of Christos, of that life force that creates life and creates new, and something new emerges as a result. That and the end for me was neutralized. So I'm still practicing this, battling with this myself every day, because I'm so left brain, used to the left brain. And then I went extreme to the right brain. Right. And I think that's situation with the planet right now is that there's extremes and there's no cohesiveness. And so that's where I'm working to stay sane, right? To execute from that alignment, from that cohesion and truth, ultimately, right? So, what's your take on that? Especially since, I mean, your parable went deeper in that, right? To know, but not to do is still important to me. So I want to, how does this apply to you in your life? What, can you take us a little deeper there for
You
you?
watch that short 15-minute video about Gnostics and the connection between what the Gnostics, their stabilizing practice with your S.A.N.E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also practiced yoga for years and meditation and these understandings. And then you shared with me what was how do you say those levels? The plotheras?
Pleroma?
Pleromas. The
Pleroma is
pleromas.
the Gnostic sort of heaven.
Okay, so I'm still trying to get my mind around that. Those are new words. And
that's left brain stuff.
Exactly.
Ideas, concepts.
But my mind fights really hard to understand it, because I feel like if I understand it, I'm safe. That's an old, deep training from when I was in Scientology, that you have to know this, even though it doesn't resonate. You still have to know this data or you're bad, right?
The best question I like to ask myself is, what if God, the monad, God is everywhere and can communicate to you? Do you need a specific book, whether it be Scientology, what they teach, the Bible, or even the Bhagavad Gita, whatever? If you're up in some isolated mountain somewhere, God reach you, can God talk to you? Of course.
Right.
And so whatever was available to you, anybody in this world, needs to be available to you just naturally, by natural law, by that communication of Sophia Cristos, Spirit of God. That's what some people call the Holy Spirit, the feminine aspect. That's where the signal, that's where your signal comes in. That's sort of like the Holy Spirit, I would say, if you want to use Christian lingo or lingo, of Holy Spirit talking to you, the signal. You catch that. You're stopped. There's a signal, whether that comes to your son speaking to you or whatever. Signal, and then you're anchoring. The Gnostic talked about this, one of the practice, to take 60 seconds to sort of get grounded back into your body, breathing, or their mindful techniques of asking who's aware right now. Just some time to like center, get anchored, like you say, right? And then the neutralizing aspect, right? That's getting rid of the distortion. And you're part of the divine spark. The monad is within you. Everything that's outside of that is the distortion. And that would be what your physical senses detect. Anything negative thoughts would be part of the distortion. Negative stuff you see going on in this world. And if you want to go into quantum physics, it's ultimately all an illusion. Everything your five senses detect. That's why I write parables. It's symbolic. There's parable, there's metaphor way of understanding it. Allegories, symbiology, archetypes. You have to, it's difficult, and people like think, oh, you're just making stuff up. But if you're signaled, if you're connected to Holy Spirit, then you can start interpreting everything in your thoughts, whatever's negative. Negative. You're not the negative thoughts that go through your mind, right? You're not the negative thought patterns that repeat in loops inside your mind. You can speak as a monad if you know and recognize the divine spark is within you. Holy Spirit, Sophia, is within you. You can speak as a monad and speak confidently and declare. And what you declare changes your reality slowly over time, right? That's what some of the Gnostics kind of tried to teach, right? So neutralize and then execute. I like to execute. Then you take action when you feel that groundedness. You get the signal, your groundedness, and you neutralize the distortions, everything out there and within you. That the kingdom of God is within you and without you, the Gnostic said. Whereas the Bible just has Christ saying the kingdom of God is within you. The Gnostics add stuff. I really suggest people, if you're interested in understanding your own psychology, what was going on in early Christianity, and how it's impacted the world for 2,000 years, study the Gnostics. A lot of people haven't even heard of them.
Yeah. So my mind is thinking of all these things from the very first time I connected with Gnostics. And I still don't understand it. I don't understand that word. And I get hung up on the definition of the word. What does it mean? Where did it come from? What's the root of Gnostic? Gnostic. Do you know what the root is?
Well, it's translated knowledge, but people go, say, I got knowledge. I got all these Bible verses I memorized. No, the Gnostic it's a special, when you get that signal. and then you learn how to anchor and neutralize the distortions, and then you execute. That's Gnosticism, and you're hearing from the divine. You're having your own personal mediated experience with the divine, and you can say, yeah, God speaks to me. Okay, prove it. Okay, well, you can't. So going around saying that, people sometimes, especially in today's modern world, think you're crazy. Oh, take them to the psychiatrist, right? But that's it, right? So I can say I'm a Gnostic. I hear from God personally. I sense that intuition, and I follow that, and slowly I'm building and getting stronger. Anybody can say that. So you have to have discernment too. Not everyone's a Christian, for example, who says they are, or of any particular faith. Watch their actions. Actions alone, by their fruits you'll know them. But we all make mistakes and do stupid stuff sometimes. So what's their intentions? Intentions, motivations are very important behind your actions. Mark Pasio, he's flying off, cursing, swearing, pissed at people. I think he's got a good heart, though. Outwardly, you'd think. Yeah. But what your motivations are, what motivates you to do and say what you should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I was looking at with regards to the Sophia Cristos is how to balance this in our current culture. What could someone do to bring that in? Do you know what I mean? With regards to, I don't want to get into all the news and all of that, but that is, for the most part, what people have their attention on.
Right.
And everything you just said in the previous 5 minutes, of whether it's the way you said it for the Gnostics, or whether it's using the signal, anchor, neutralize, execute, to me, that is so simple. Like, if that's just rinse and repeat, and life is simple and beautiful. I'm not saying it's not easy, because we're dealing with things, but that is ultimately the practice. And yet then you go in or out into a situation, or out into the world, or out into a relationship, and you are introduced to someone else's miasmas, someone else's, and then times that by a billion of all the confusion. Where do we start? That's what often I have to look at. Where do we start? And as soon as I say, okay, where do I start? Because it overwhelms me to no end if I start thinking that way. Oh my gosh, how are we going to save the world? And I stop and go, okay, it's the starfish. But what is your take on where someone can actually unravel some of the pieces that are so alive in this construct right now?
Well, that little video I had on the post, my Substack post about your book, it talked about stabilizing and then investigating and now repeat it, right? So I like acronyms too. Invert the idea of SIN, S-I-N. Stabilize, right? Investigate, now repeat. So sin doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's a Gnostic practice. You stabilize. That's similar to your signal and anchoring, but they were like, you hear that signal, you stabilize, you take breaths and realize the separation between the awareness and the thoughts. Sophia, right brain, left brain, right? And then you investigate and you ask yourself, who is aware right now? Beyond thoughts, ideas, concepts, who's aware? That's really hard to do, because my thoughts are me. No, we identify with the AI body and the negative thoughts typically, right? I think the monad, the God, if you will, is trying to create a being that doesn't have to know everything. You can have a bit of the divine spark, trust there's a God who knows everything, but you follow your intuition. It's boring to know everything. It'd be nice to be able to just follow instinct and intuition and get that honed and developed. That's part of what we're here to develop. And of course, there'll be an AI component, you think, right? Right? That's the part of it as well.
You have to pull that a little further. So AI, you're talking about the large language model, all of this data. And what about that?
I think humans basically are mostly AI. We're so left brain, logic, ideas, and concepts and processing. That's what I mean by AI. The true AI is human beings mostly, NPCs, RPs, NPCs, non-player characters. The Gnostic called them Hylics. They had an idea that their Hylics are basically what we would call NPCs today, program people.
What's the word?
Hylics.
How do you spell that?
Hylic, I think.
Interesting.
or HYLLIC, whatever. It's just
Okay. Hang on. I've got to understand this for a moment, because I think it's really interesting. And as I was having a discussion with a group of mine that, where there's how much power the AI takes and the AI stations take, and how, they're just sucking out the water of, it's a whole thing. Isn't it interesting? And then you said the monad is wanting to know itself. And are we in this cycle of now where we are inverting so much that we're losing the connection to nature and becoming robots? Is the matrix actually coming true? Do you know what I mean? Where it's the machine city starting to take over. And why is that? And why is this a continuing loop? Because this is not new. This is not new. I mean, if I have to take in Scientology, because I had 20 plus years with that. And Scientology was all about implants, and we've been around for billions of years, and the robots and doll bodies and this and this and this and this. So, I look at, here we are in this small window of my lifetime, 50 plus years. And then we look at Gnostics, and now you're talking what? Only hundreds, barely thousands of years. Order of magnitude, that's super small in this billions, trillions of years. If we look at that, and there's a lot of people that believe billions of years, trillions of years. When I was in Scientology, I believed in 2 billion years, because I signed a contract for 2 billion years. That was a joke, right? A slave contract. And it's so fascinating to me where we are in this time. And there's a part of me that wants to get it right and to finally unravel this trap, because I think this is a trap. But did we put ourselves in this trap? Are we all one? I think I've asked you this question before, because I said, I don't believe we're all one anymore, mainly because Ryder and I were talking about this, right? My son and I were talking about this, and he's like, and I love it that he will push back on me, because I'm really strong with what I believe, but it takes me a while to pivot and shift out of these and keep questioning, because I'm in this stage right now where I just want to throw up my hands and say, this effing world is all bullshit, and I'm done playing these stupid games. It is not fun. So, yeah. Okay, over to you, because I know you have some wisdom.
I don't know. Ask a question. I'm not sure where you want to go.
No, what's your take on what I'm saying here? Because I don't want to say, I don't like being in a state of hopelessness, but there is no way I can go back to being a drone and working as a machine ever again. I can't. I can't do this game where you go to the 9-to-5 job, you apply for, I can't. And it's really painful to observe and see friends and colleagues in the robot system, this cycle of Groundhog Day, and I don't know where to go from here. I was just noting down, I don't know if you ever read The Monk and the Motorcycle, or what. Robin Sharma wrote it. Do you remember him?
Nope.
He quit. He was a lawyer, and he quit, and then he went to the Himalayas or something, and just checked out for 3 years, I guess, came back completely transformed, like 25 years younger, etc. And I feel like, there's a part of that, but I'm also in the deep end with a mom who has health conditions, and she's in the pharmacological assembly line that's completely ass backwards and completely making a sick factory. It's a whole factory of making more sick people. And it's just like, it almost becomes overwhelming. And for me, I can barely even get through to neutralizing some of that to, I want to listen for the signal. And that's why I said, I'm going to do this talk with you. I want to talk to you. Because the execution, it's my ability to execute is definitely stifled right now. And I think there's a part of me that doesn't want to just go like what Robin Sharma did, is just go and be on a mountaintop, which there's a part of me that really needs that, right? Where I'm not dependent on, and I'm not, my life isn't being sucked out of me by being pulled in all these different directions and having to deal with this fire and that literal fire and this, and I wonder how many leaders, whether they're a mom or a dad, or whether they're a business owner, or whether they're whatever, that they're leading their life and they get to that point and it's just like, oh my God, I have to keep pushing. What's the choice?
If everything your five senses detect truly is illusion, like action, you got to do this, you got to do that, I got to pay the bills, I got to, even those you care about, your son and all that, they're a projection. Ultimately, if there's a divine spark behind there, it's like in the video game. I use the analogy of a video game, right? If you're manipulating the joystick, your avatar, your character in the game, it's all an illusion. That character in the game even is illusion. Even the body that character has is illusion. Morpheus told Neo, your body, what Neo perceived to be his body, was just residual self-image, the mental projection of your digital self, right? But there's a real human being manipulating that avatar in the game, right? But if we know from the game, there are like literal NPCs, they're just part of the program. You can go up and talk to them in a game. You'll be able to tell. I can't tell sometimes. The AI is so smart. It talks so much like a human. It's like it's passed the Turing test. They'll fool you in the game, right? But there are some avatars that have a legitimate human on the other side of the world manipulating that joystick to discern that too. It's just wacky when you think, if it's an illusion, what's the point? What are we here for?
Okay, so that's the question. What's the point? What are we here for? Do you have an answer to that?
That's the $1 million question. I've contemplated, pondered. People have for thousands of years, and there's so many different ideas and concepts, right? It kind of doesn't make sense that, God is here to experience himself as human. If God knows everything, he knows what you're going to do, it's bullshit. I mean, what does God need to experience? He knows everything, right? So I sometimes think I had the image in my mind of an egg, right? If the monad is pure consciousness, it's outside the egg. It knows everything. But we're inside the egg, developing, becoming the chicken or the eagle, whatever that egg is going to hatch, right? Inside is the yolk, the yellow part, the yolk. That could be called the, Cristos, the male aspect. The egg white would be Sophia. In Esoterica, our soul is said to be female. You've got the egg, but it's wrapped behind that outer coating of the egg white, which is ultimately Sophia, right? But there's like, Spock, you communicate by mental telepathy to what's outside the construct, the monad, the ultimate consciousness. Does God have emotion? To see all the stuff going on in this world, not intervene, if you have ultimate power to change everything, he's got to be like Data on Star Trek, who could turn his emotion chip on and off eventually. He was like an android, pure AI conscious, but he developed emotions, but he could turn it on and off when necessary to do what's necessary to make sure that we ultimately hatch from that egg, right? There's a merging eventually as the development happens. The egg white, yellow yolk combines with the white, and eventually cracks the illusion out, and out comes the eagle, pterodactyl, or what, chicken, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we develop. I think ultimately will be like little sparks, little cells of the monad, a smaller version, as above, so below, right? We're not zero as far as we don't know everything. It'd be boring to live as everything, but I got a love. Can do whatever's necessary, would give you the ability to exist without knowing everything and being bored, but having emotions to be guided by positive emotions only ultimately, and an interesting click of being able to think and feel positive emotions. The idea of the pleroma returning, Sophia returning to the pleroma. when she stops being the earth, which is just an analogy for the mind, I would say. Even the Bible, Jeremiah 22:11, I think it says, oh, earth, 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 hear the word of the Lord. If Sophia is the earth, and the earth is spoken of even in the Bible as a consciousness, it's just the development of your consciousness. The earth is gone once I'm dead, because I'm the only one here, kind of. Everything's illusion. I'm going to crack that egg open and leave.
There's so many concepts around this that what we're putting forth right now. And to me, why it's so important to lead your thoughts and be so meticulous about what you're leading into the future and into the world, because I believe that what we're doing right now, each of us, is actually creating a future. And whatever future we might meet, whenever this body dies, goes away, I don't think I die. So I know that, so I'm creating or working to create a better future. But, you know, even those words, I know better that future and time that's not even,
but it's interesting.
That's still this construct. This is this construct of this world, of this construct, this game that we're in, this terrain, or I don't even know what to say, because I know that there's different, just even these words, you know, when you start learning a different language, then you start having bigger perceptions or different perceptions. So, but at the same time, I always look for my anchor. I'm coming back to my anchor, because if I don't have a point to anchor from, even a signal coming in, it's the anchor is my base. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But the signal comes first versus my base. So, which is interesting to me.
You create that signal yourself, like consciously throughout the day, it just comes.
No, it's just, it's there, right? I don't know, but this body is my base right now. I consider it. So this is where I have to actually.
Body's not, you'll die, your body will die, but I don't die.
Correct.
So your body is different from
what
this goes on.
My perception is through this body right now, is through this perception. I'm perceiving through this body's emotions. And if someone gets into astrology or tarot or human design or any of that, you can start to learn a little bit more about yourself and when you're born. To me, there's a lot to astrology. There's a lot to human design. I think it's very useful. I use it with my clients. I think it's very important. It's not being woo-woo too much. I think it's more, you want to know yourself, so it's tools so that you can see. So for me, I look at and use the understanding of this time and this space of this that I have called Stefana, right? And the name that I call myself right now as part of my anchor. Otherwise, and those signals are coming through this perception of a mom, of what I'm intending to do. Otherwise, I think, you know, because if a signal comes to, let's say, I don't know, Putin, Trump, any of these others, right? What's that signal coming? It's going to come through their perceptions, their construct. Even if it's pure Sophia, it's still, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it does not necessarily make sense to me. I'm trying to figure this out. I am literally trying to figure out. There's levels and layers that I have gotten better at. And I get
and then came the cycle where you're sort of in between, you're getting that signal, you're anchoring, and you're being able to walk in the spirit kind of thing. Not all the time. You lose the connection and try to get back to it. And then the highest was the pneumatic level. Pneumatics. So that's what the Gnostic said, is when you're sort of in that mode all the time. You don't struggle anymore to, as an actress, you've told me once, that living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. And the pneumatic walks around all the time, living truthfully in the imaginary circumstances of this illusion world. And they know that, and they're not afraid to die because they know where they're going. They know what lives on. Not the body, something else.
Yes. And with what you just said there and this discussion, what is your take on things like MK Ultra, where there is mind control being pushed out there. And we know that the signal, so let's go with the signal. To me, I work really hard to check whether that signal is a pure signal or it's from something that is nefarious, because I do believe that there's
negative thoughts, negative stuff.
negative thoughts, negative things that
they
are
call them the archons, repeating negative shit in your mind. That's not you. That's what dies. Even that thought ability and that way of thinking is part of what dies in the body.
That's not just a distraction, that's still at that signal level. And that's that's something that I think is important, especially for leaders or someone who's making an impact or someone who is leading a family or leading a community. They have to be really discerning of the signal.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's happening right now. I don't think that that's
you can't discern the signal or teach the signal if you're connected to the signal,
Yep. But so I think there's something I think there's pre-work before the signal. Do you know what I mean?
There's a certain amount of work, and you don't all have to go up to the Himalayas, but I sit at home and I write my websites and I read and I contemplate, and that's what I do now. Because like I hear you working for the man, clocking, hitting that time clock and making this fake fiat paper as if it's something, it's just a symbol of your energy that they manipulate. The whole society is run on that mark of the beast, money.
Right.
But we all got it. No man might buy or sell unless he has the mark of the beast, and we all buy and sell, so we all have the mark of the beast. Money. It's money itself, I would say, and the manipulation that makes us do things we don't want to do and not do the things that we want to do because there's no money to do that. Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma for sure. Okay, there's a lot there. And of course I want to solve all the problems of the world.
Sure, but if the world's an illusion, the only problem to solve is earth, earth, earth. Hear the word of the Lord. It's you, your consciousness. We're talking, if I'm in my own, your own egg, but we have a mental connection, like through the monad outside the eggs can communicate what we both need to hear in our own individual reality. I call it the Truman-atrix sometimes, combination of the Truman Show with Jim Carrey and the Matrix.
Yeah.
And yet the real connection with a real RP, a real character, just like in a game. If there's a real human being behind that avatar, it's a fake, it's an illusion, but there's still a real connection there. But that's that monad with that consciousness outside the connection message over to you. So for example, the way I think, the MK Ultra stuff, I've been in MK Ultra. We all have. We've all had traumas.
Right.
Not to that extreme, that I remember anyway. They suppressed my memory so much. But I raped and tortured and given LSD and all the horrible things they do. It's a symbolic representation of what I've experienced in a smaller way, right? And we all have, as above, as below, as above, as below. They say, right? If that's all fake, I hate to sound insulting. Someone saying, "Oh, I experienced that." You did. If you're, if there's that divine spark connection, you're a real player character. I'm not saying you didn't experience it. Not in my reality though. I'm in the Truman-atrix. But if you can discern that as a real person, I'll say you've experienced that. There's this lady Kathy O'Brien who was in the MK Ultra. She was severely, I sense truth behind what she says, and she's a real person in the sense I'm trying to describe, right? So I don't like insulting people to your face. Oh, you're not real. You're just projection, illusion. And I've contemplated enough to understand what is real behind the illusion of everything, right? If what I'm saying makes sense, I don't know.
Well, from what you're saying, I'm taking it that it's your perception. So everyone has their own perception. And that's the thing, is there's all these projections.
Sure.
And there's no way that I can fix those projections of others. So I have to come back to me. And that's then this push.
You want to see. I've heard that sort of trite saying, it seems, be the change you want to see. And then is that truly magically everything out here will change because it's all illusion anyway? I've pondered that concept. I've made it my own way trying to make changes, but I don't see anything happening. And everyone else is doing this too. So, and I enjoy that. I'm going to do that too. And that's all part of the negative thoughts, the loops of the Archon getting you all screwed up, I'd say.
Yeah. Archons. Oh boy. So you just entered that one.
That was the Gnostic version of the devil, the demiurge, the Baal.
Okay, so we can't go on without getting this unraveled, because the archons, again, just like the Sophia, is an energy. It is not an entity, correct?
It's an energy, yeah. The divine feminine, the white part of the egg that I'm in here, stuck in my own little reality.
So it's an energy. It's not an entity.
Energy.
It's not a physical devil. It's what's projected, just like Sophia, just like Cristos.
Your thoughts are an energy. The yolk is an energy, but they merge and become one, a new entity, a smaller version, if you will.
So this is where they're morphing, or they're coming out into something and manifesting. That's the third piece. That's the third piece, is it not?
Say again.
You said archon. Yeah. So now archon has now taken on a form.
Again, it's negative energy.
Correct. Just like Sophia
negative intentions.
Could be this gorgeous woman, this goddess, that's taking on a form of energy that is essentially neutral. We've identified it as something. Am I off here?
Yeah. Anytime you start using words, there's a duality to words. It can easily be interpreted and thought in different ways. Like, it is difficult. You're just trying to stay connected to awareness, without which is all symbolic, and there's no words to describe. And then inevitably we start using words to describe, and that kind of automatically stems. But
okay, yeah.
Like a hologram, they say if you cut a hologram, right? You see
fractals,
the exact same image, but smaller resolution.
So just fractals, just like the light fractals.
The whole image is the same, even though it's lower resolution. To be like that, like the monad, a smaller version of the monad, as above, so below. But in this, you got to ultimately break out of this egg to experiment.
I don't personally love that analogy of breaking out of the egg and all of that.
Why is that?
Well, I just don't like the energy of an egg being stuck in an egg and that trap. You know, I need.
Well, there's a process of growth and development, you would say, right? Like the egg, the chicken.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I just,
But how would you break? What does that mean to break out of the egg, right? Can it really, reality transform at this late stage to become sort of a pleroma on the supposed physical Earth? There's never been, as far as we know from history, an ideal utopian society, a golden age that we know of, right?
I have no idea, but I know that there's been times in my life, and I want more of them, where I'm creating my own golden age, my own utopia. Sure. And it comes from me being fully present. And there's an existence that you can't always be fully present, because you have to think of the future, or you have to think of, handling the past, and and even just having thoughts. The moment you have a thought, you're not in the present moment anymore. You're not here now, right?
Unless you learn to be a nomadic and live truthfully in imaginary circumstances. You had so many experiences as an actress.
Then you're doing it.
You should be able to do that.
Yes, but you're also then in an imaginary circumstance, which immediately puts you into a time, place, space continuum, as opposed to just being now. The thing that's the ultimate practice, I think, is, and something that I thought was really interesting, what you said with regards to how you could be more while doing what you do. This is what you said in the review for my book, Stay S.A.N.E. You said it teaches you how to be more while doing you. And I wish I had written those words, because that is so beautiful.
Be more, be that divine spark, sense that connection. You yourself said your body dies, but you live on. So you're not your body. You're saying you're not your body. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, that is that is such an amazing synthesis right there. How to be more. And that is that Cristos, that is that Sophia, that is the expression to me. and then in doing what you're doing. To me, that's the embodiment of it all, right there, leading from that place. So that's
I got to ask you this question because I've never been an actor, right? So when you're an actress, have you lost yourself so much in the role that even just for a few seconds or moments, it's like you were that character and you forgot the stagehand and your signals are trying to.
Of course. In fact, I would finish a play and not remember it all. Not even, I'd come out as like, what just happened? There was no time. It was gone. It was like, was I even there? Was I even part of it? It's almost like a blackout. It was a blackout, or I thought because I was separate. There's certain things. It's like when you go to sleep. I don't know what you experience when you go to sleep, but you know, there's a lot happening when you're sleeping.
Yeah.
A lot. There's many dimensions. And sometimes for acting, that is what happened, is it would just, I wasn't embodying, it was just a different essence. And there is a misidentity for myself.
Yeah. What percentage of the time were you able to stay in that mode? Giving me my hand signals here and I got to come off stage, you're sort of time in it, like you're just living truthfully in those imagined circumstances versus acting in those.
Yeah, it would always depend, because if there was a heavy duty script with a lot of lines, a lot of words, and I didn't have them down cold, which, you know, that's the fail of an actor. If you don't know your words and they just become you. And so they're just living off of your emotions, and the words are the boat on the river. And it would depend, you know. The most fulfilling time is when you're just
lose yourself in it.
Completely. And I don't like lose yourself in it, but let go, not losing, but letting go. And
the flow.
Yeah, just fully letting go.
There's the Hylix, the Gnostics. Then there's the psychic. That's when you're just sort of acting. And then there's the pneumatic, where you're living in those imaginary circumstances. You're living truthfully in those imaginary circumstances. That's the, you know, the analogy, I would say, to get to that pneumatic level.
I think it's really important, but I don't know how to do that yet, because I'm still in the roles and duties that I'm playing.
You're in the psychic middle road. I'd say I am too. Yeah.
You know, there's so many roles that I have to go into and embody, and I don't know. I'm hoping that I can have some kind of an impact on those I'm here to impact. I'm still in old roles, and those roles still take me to old NPCs and distractions. And then I get caught up in that, hence Stay Sane, because I had to unravel from that. And I guess that's part of my journey. I mean, I think that's, again, one of the things that I learned from human design, and learning more about myself and learning more about others. There is a design, and it is in the stars. I'm not dogmatic about it, but wow, it's pretty interesting. You know, it's really interesting.
I wish I knew more about astrology and the stars. Like I used to be so skeptical, you know, all that's just woo woo, they're making crap up. But now I'm more open-minded, having investigated many paradigms, and it's like there's something to that, but I don't know how to really interpret that stuff. Can you?
Yeah, to me, it's not so much interpretation as it is an understanding. Like, you have more of an understanding of the Gnostics and Sophia Cristos, so you're able to articulate in a way that has, you know, more ways that allow for someone to understand that. For me, if we were to look at, it just comes down to know thyself, right? So I think the majority of the NPCs, even RPCs, don't fully know themselves. There are a few. Even when I look at, like, so for example, Dr. Jack Kruse, I'm really into him right now because he's kind of a rogue doctor, and he's saying a lot of things that are helping me to make sense of some things that I've experienced in the past, and trying to make sense of certain very, very high level neurologists and pulmonologists and all of this, because I'm having to deal day to day with this medical world. And it's just illogical to me. I'm like, it's like the hands not talking to the body. It's like there's such a disconnect in that world. And a friend of mine sent me a video that Jack Kruse had done and talked about in certain concepts. And I highly recommend, if anybody's interested in learning more, Dr. Jack Kruse, K-R-U, is it a Z-E?
K-R-A.
I think it is.
I don't
But
know.
he's done a TED Talk. He was a neurosurgeon in Nashville. And he's got a TED Talk. Once you go there, just then start seeing what's interesting to you. You just you look at how this world needs to be unraveled, and then what's my duty in it. I go back to that duty as well, because I feel like, okay, I am here for this time and in this space. Why? There is a reason. I believe there's a reason. And using the tools of human design and astrology help to fill in the blanks.
So you sort of sense that signal, you'd say, of the Sophia or intuition and wisdom talking to you through astrology, and you can make analogies like I make with the Gnostics. That how it works for you?
No, human design and astrology was not signal. It's more of execution. Okay. It's more of a tool to neutralize more than anything. Because the signal is the signal. And once it's clean and clear and you fully hear it, oh my gosh, that's the bliss. That's the moment of bliss. But the hero's journey cannot exist in bliss. Otherwise, there's no journey. There's no hero's journey, right? So to follow that signal, follow the bliss, if you want to call Joseph Campbell's, and we can go the hero's journey, right? That signal it transcends all this. Then to anchor in that, totally separate than neutralizing. I need more tools to neutralize. That's why I dive into this, have conversations with you, learn Mark Passio's podcast, What on Earth is Happening, and study more to understand, study into now Jack Kruse to study more, because I'm trying to neutralize all this false data that I have had for the past 50 years. And all the false data that is around us. Yeah. And then being able to discern and differentiate between this sick output that, even now with all these new agers and all the, even with Mark, you can't take it all in, and you have to be able to discern. You have to be able to differentiate. You have to be able to think things through. And if you're not connected to your signal and you're not able to anchor in truth, again, that's totally separate. I'm not saying signal comes from Cristos or Sophia. I think it transcends that. I think it's somewhere else, because to me, this
outside
maybe
of the construct.
If you want to call it monad, it is. It's the wholeness. It's the truth. Anyway, that's what I'm working with and dealing with, and working to be more stable within that. And it is a moment to moment daily practice. Like I just had a road trip. And one of the things that I said to Ryder, he actually said to me, he said, "Mom, you just need to be present and stop doing all these actions." And I didn't turn the radio on. I got in the car and I was so present. I felt the texture of the
neutralizing the
steering
story.
wheel.
Yeah,
That's all I was doing.
Moment.
But it was work. Yeah. It was hard work, right? Yeah. Hard work. And I went through every emotion, but it was similar to that. And I'll let you go after this. It was similar to the acting, where everything just disappeared, where there was no time. But there was 31 hours from the day I left till the day I pulled in to my destination. 31 hours. And 4 of those hours, my body was sleeping. The rest, I was fully present in every moment, or practicing and feeling every emotion that came up. And that's what's interesting, is every emotion came up in the gamut, right? And I really worked hard to shift out of the thinking brain, the left brain, and to just let the feelings come up, because the thoughts going off in that's, to me, the distractions. That's where the distractions are, in the thoughts.
Yeah. The consciousness with or without motion, well, then when the thoughts, right, emotions then stimulate more thoughts and lose the negative, right? Learn how to handle that and merge the two.
Are we here to learn, though? Are we here to learn? I don't know.
I think that can as a small revolution.
I think that's an old idea. I think that's an old idea. And
Our ultimate existence and mentality for what lives on forever. The Gnostics said our body, they're like you take from away, right, and you put on a different one, right? Now, Stark, the Iron Man, with AI mechanical suit.
Yeah.
Right, suit that was like a passionate, emotional, organic thing stuck to his body and tried to take over. Our bullish part that we're trying to learn to control is like trying to learn to navigate and control the Iron Man, the Iron Man suit, and then you get to wear that garment. The piece of the demonaz, divine spark, puts on that garment once you learn how to handle that, and or you can put on a different one. I'm just going with the story, leave it all as is. Church says, but he was able to appear in different people, and his disciples didn't recognize the body of a man in Emmaus. And then
I think that's a very juvenile idea. So if that's from the Gnostics, I think it's a very juvenile idea. I thought that 35, 40 years ago, I remember feeling like, okay, taking on these identities and this clothing, and that's like paper dolls. I would do paper dolls and just like, oh, we're all paper dolls. And I think it's a juvenile thing. Not saying you are on that, but if that's the Gnostics, I think there's something more. And I feel like if the Gnostics and the data there, even Rudolf Steiner, which I think his work is incredible, I think there's so many layers and depths of knowledge that's out there, but I don't think we have it. I don't think we have the answers. I don't think we have the right answers.
We'll never have all the answers.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Suzette, thank you for Cruz. Yeah, she spelled it correctly. Suzette put
part of life is to learn to live comfortably with uncertainty, because we'll never have all the answers.
So if we're here to learn, then what are we seeking through? I don't know. This is so interesting to me. This is an important conversation, not necessarily one to have on a YouTube stream, but I want to have more peers where we get to talk and discuss these conversations and learn and understand more. I'm curious, Suzette, what's your take on this, and any questions before we wrap up? Do you have any questions, or Dennis, do you want to say anything that I failed to ask?
I think the Gnostics were mainly saying your body's like a garment that you're forced to wear your whole life, and then you cast it down. It's not really you. That's the analogy. I'm just adding to it, but
yeah. So to me, I say it is you, and take responsibility for it. Take responsibility for your body, for your thoughts, for your actions, for your emotions. Take responsibility for them. Don't say, oh, it's just
something of you lives on, you dies. It does.
But it's mine. It is mine right now.
Maybe you own it like a
yes. Well, I'm embodying it. It is my essence. I am animating it. I am my life force in this, right?
But consciousness, it was thoughts, it was logic, it was total separate. It had no emotion.
So if we go there, then are we looking at, okay, there's separate thoughts and emotions, and then we're plugged into the matrix and we don't even know our own thoughts? I don't know. That's what to unravel. And especially now, because I do a lot of work, because I came from holistic health and the physical and the corrective exercise in the physical body. There is so much, like, for example, the fascia, the entire tissue of the physical body has more emotional recordings in it, 7 times more, in fact, than our own emotional frequencies of the heart.
That's why the MK Ultra, everybody get a lot of negative, it makes you more compliant, more fearful, more controllable, and make you more NPC, right?
And depths of this and layers. And so as we start to understand, this is why when I go and speak, I'm I'm having people physically get up and do neurological drills and change their patterns of their mind, because even with our phones scrolling down this way, this does even just doing that right now, this is going to make someone, it's like, you've got to switch it. You've got to do neurological drills. So there's so many things that are important and that we have to understand. I don't want to say so many things that you can't understand. No, there are the important things, and you need to know what the important things are. And then you need to operate from those and lead from those places, and then guide and share in your community or in your world or whatever you're doing. And then the rest we delete and let go, because they are distractions. The discernment of what's the distraction and what's not is the key, right? That's why I feel like, Dennis, I'll be honest with you, some of those, your body of work is so vast. And then you share so much more. Like if you just read one article or one post of yours, there's 50 other chains that you can go off to. And it's overwhelming. So that's where I have to be very discerning, especially because I can't go down rabbit holes anymore, right? So that's where it's like, I would love to just be able, let's clear all this out and just only give me the important ones. But only you, for yourself, will have to know what the important ones are. And that to me is the first signal. You've got to have the signal to know what the importance pieces are so that you can anchor in those. Otherwise, now it's a distraction again. And that's this loop. And you're either downward spiraling or you're upward.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I try to make my links. I put a lot of different links and then I'll link to other posts I've done so people can explore and go all over the place. But
an amazing body of work, Dennis. It's amazing. Plus, you've got 3 websites, so it's just probably just
about
let
9,
yourself
actually.
be. No, okay. Don't tell me more than the 3. So you know what? Send me those links. I'll just copy and paste it, and I'll put it right into the show notes because they're worth it. And if someone sees it,
for my website,
definitely do the red pill. I'll put the one specifically where you did the parable, because I thought that was really cool. And then our last interview is on there as well, which has some good points. We talked about some good stuff in that one. And then the Sophia Cristos, we'll put which you've had on your screen anyway, right? Okay. Well, this is definitely, we've gone into super fun things. I would love to know what was stirred in you. I always would love to have more dialogue or people in the chat having discussions, because I think that there's something that can happen that's a richness that when we can have dialogues and have someone in the moment.
Don't do that enough these days, for sure. It's taboo to talk about spirituality, religion in our culture, especially in the West. That's taboo. You can't talk about that. And then it detracts you from being able to learn, right?
Right, because it's just a word. It's just discussion. I mean, yeah, exactly. So I think it's worth discussing no matter what. And that's where, if we put our beliefs aside so that we can learn something. That's hard. It used to be very hard for me because I was very dogmatic. It takes that time. But I'll just say, if you heard something that was stirred in you, maybe something, I would say, like, if you've recognized even overriding your own signal. And my book is super small. It's super small and it's a quick read, right, Dennis? Yeah. But it's worth it. And I still have it on. I still have it on Kindle right now for 99 cents. So if someone wants that, you can get that. I'm going to switch that over next week so that it's at the regular price. But if you can find that on Amazon, and then you can find Dennis at redpilloftruth.com, right? And then on your Substack, well, I'll make sure those show notes have your links.
Does it show my Sophia Cristos blog? Sophia Cristos.blog and my name there. It's got a link called Spaces, which has got all my websites, so people can go there too.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Leading Stronger Longer. I think that there's more discussion here. I have to finish the book. I haven't finished Ham's book, John Ham's book. It's still
John Lash.
John Lash. Yeah. Why do I think? Yeah.
Not his image. You're reading it. Not in his image. You're reading it.
Well, remember when you were doing the book study?
Yeah.
And I started it, and then I went off to read Starman, this is another one about Isis, which I think is very similar. So the Sophia energy and the Isis energy, I think all of these are mythos.
Similar to
right. So just even understanding this, but shifting it out of, because we have, even think about these images that we have from TV.
Sure.
Right? How many TV shows took over and put images in our mind that's what it is.
And programming is so TV.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You're just relaxing and you're letting it all soak in and affect your mind and brainwash you and program you.
And there's a massive amount of deprogramming that has to happen because I did have in my mind Isis, or like this whole energy of Wonder Woman and all of that. It's like, oh man, we're so far off. We're just so far off. And when we can start tapping into the true signal, that's when we tap back into that power. It's work though. It is the real work. That's the work.
Become eventually kind of fluid and effortless, but it's work to get there.
Yeah. So you're telling me you're fluid and effortless now?
Oh no, I'm more in the middle, psychic, I would say, but pneumatic is the goal to get to, I would say.
Okay, so wait, so this is not from the I don't know if I wrote it down, the pluralis, when you're going into this level of this hierarchy of the psychic and then the
highly psychic pneumatic.
And that's from Gnostics.
Yeah, that's the Gnostic terms.
And then the other video you had sent me on the levels, 7 levels, different altogether.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put the link to that. Will you remind me? So this is the link on those 7 pleromas.
Okay, I'll write it down here. So link the one about 7 pleromas or 7 stages.
So that was into 7 stages of the 7 pleromas, because that's really interesting. And I think it's useful for people to look at themselves within that and to understand different understandings of where they're at.
Yeah.
Not that they have to pigeonhole themselves, because that's not what it's about. Sure. And then the 3, however, I do like levels. I like to play the game. Interesting. This is interesting because I do have a level of game player in me. Do you know what I mean? Where I see levels and then I want to get to the next level and I want to get to the next level. That is definitely a construct here on this plane, isn't it?
So I've heard that analogy too. Life's like a video game. It's and you're playing levels. You want to get to the big boss at the end, beat the big boss. Yeah. Analogies. All it is it's an. It's never 100% true, but can help.
No, right, exactly. But it's interesting to see that energy come up in me, and to see what comes up, and then just see, is that real? Is that not? Yeah. Oh gosh, so much. Okay. Thanks again, Dennis. It's fabulous.
Very nice to connect again. Yeah, we should meet again sometime.
Good, we will, and I'll get these notes because there's just such a body of work that you have. And I'll talk to you soon. Stay with me. I'm just going to disconnect us from the stream.